Hello, Imperium, and welcome to the military quarter. So, unfortunately, the polls in the 25 man are just like nothing like the ones in Classic. So, I'm gonna the mob types are largely the same. So, I'm going to talk us through the mob types and then talk us through the individual polls um, really quickly. But just know that this is not an accurate representation of what you're going to be seeing. So, for example, in this very first room, the first two polls are actually one Death Knight, which are these guys over here, and two Risen DKs. The Risen DKs kind of act like lava annihilators. They like drop threat and will reset threat constantly, and they're very easy. They're low health. Our primary kill target on almost every poll in the military quarter will be these Death Knights. So we'll be pulling a Death Knight and two Risen Death Knights. The Death Knights, they don't sound that bad. They just occasionally raise a guy, but that guy has a substantial amount of health and hits hard. And so any dead bodies that are around, it will affect. So we always kill the Death Knights first in every single pull. They are a nuke target. They are a priority. And so that's our first sort of big introduction to what is going to be just a bunch of prio lists for the trash. So that's the first pull. The next pull after these first two pulls, the next pull is a couple of Death Knight captains in a patrol. The Death Knight captains are these bigger Death Knight guys. They're not actually as dangerous as the Death Knights. They have a huge whirlwind, but the idea is they stun themselves when they whirlwind, so they don't move. So the idea is you need to just run out melee. Tanks, you can disarm them, and it reduces the damage substantially for the whirlwind. But more often than not, just run out. But be aware melee that you'll get bopped real hard on the first tick of the whirlwind. So be sure that if you're not topped off, you're not in. The other big thing is tanks, of course, we're always going to separate the Death Knight captains no matter what we're pulling. We're never going to pull two on top of each other. So that's that patrol. The next is another patrol that's like this one. This is two Necro Knights, two Shades of Naxxramas. So the Shades of Naxxramas are not interruptible, but they are stunnable. The Necro Knights have a lot of AoE cast. They can do Blast Wave, Cone of Cold, Frost Nova. They can also do a Shadow Bolt Volley. The Shadow Bolt Volley is interruptible, just like the Necropolis Acolytes in the Spiderwing. So we can interrupt that, but the Shades are stunnable, so we use a stun rotation on them, and our kill priorities are always Necro Knights. So that next pull will be two Necro Knights and one Shade. So we'll put two Rogues on the Shades, and everyone else goes Skull X and kills the Necro Knights. Then we have a Shade of Naxxramas pulled by itself. Again, we keep it stun locked. So I'm just going to clear these two packs. But there are no Death Knights in any of those pulls. Otherwise, we'd be killing the Death Knights. So then we come to the Skeletal Smiths. So these guys are deceptively dangerous. They have a very high damage Thunderclap. And their single target damage is really high. So this is actually a huge pain in the ass pull. So we do pull this. We tank them separately from each other. Here's the pat. We pull these kind of further back here. We separate them, and they do all come together, I believe. So I don't think you can separate them. So the next pull is going to be these Bony Constructs. The Bony Constructs have a like 360 degree cleave and a big cone damage thing. So these need to be these need to be tanked facing away from the raid. Melee, you need to be ready to pop in and out based on your health, because the cleave is real. But we'll separate them out. It's kind of like the carrion spinners. We just want to face the cone away from everybody. Back in the day, I know that there was a way to separate this pull. I don't actually know if that's. I don't remember if that's actually the case in 40 man though. I tend to think it's not, but we'll figure that out. So then we do that pull. not a big deal. Over here is 2 shades of Naxxramas and a Necro Knight, so we do 2 rogues on each shade of Naxxramas and 1 Necro Knight. We blow up the Necro Knight, blow up 1 shade, blow up the next shade. And the rogues are running stun rotations. So then there's a 2 DK, 2 Death Knight, 2 Death Knight Captain pull right in this doorway. So we need to be careful when we make this pull, not to go too far over here, because if we pull that pull as well as the Necro Knights, we're definitely dead. The Necro Knight pulls are really dangerous because of the amount of damage they can put out. So we pull them. The way we would pull this, for example, is we have 2 tanks grab the Death Knights and tank them right here. 1 tank grabs DK Captain and moves it to the left. 1 tank grabs a DK Captain, moves it to the right. In that way, we keep them separated for the whirlwind. We blow up the Death Knights, we blow up 1 captain, we blow up the other captain. So then we have these pulls, which are all basically like 1 Death Knight, 1 Death Knight captain, and they're either dark touched or death touched or doom touched, and that just basically determines their size. They all kind of work relatively the same. I think there are some subtle differences, but I don't remember what they are. But they were always easy modes. So in this pull, what we would do, kill the Death Knight immediately. 1 tank drags the captain out, tanks it off to the side, and we kill the Death Knight, then the Death Knight captain, then the Dark Touched Warriors. So that is what all of these next pulls are. So I'm just going to breeze through these, because that's the rubric on this is always Death Knights first, then captains, then these Dark Touched or Doom Touched or Death Touched Warriors. So that's basically that, not particularly difficult. Then we come downstairs, and there's some really shitty pulls involving Death Knight Cavaliers. The Cavalier mob type, so just in case you guys haven't noticed too, like what they love to do in Naxx in 40-man is there's 1 mob type, and then there are like 2 or 3 variations of what that mob type is. So it will be like there's a variation of this that's a Death Knight Vindicator. There's a version of this that is a Death Knight, or it's just called a Death Lord, and it's smaller somehow. I don't know, but they don't show this in the 25-man because they tried to simplify it. So for the Death Knight Cavaliers, all of this stuff is different. There's a pull over here. There's that pull over there, which is actually Cavaliers. There's 2 Pats. One of them is a Death Lord. So this is all different. So I'm just going to tell you guys very generally what's going on here. The Death Knight Cavaliers have a big cleave. They have a big cleave, but they also have a stacking AoE Curse of Agony. It's called like Aura of Agony or something. So they need to be tanked further away from each other so that we can pile on one of them and not get hit with the aura from the second one. So what will end up happening is like a tank and a couple healers will grab 1 Cavalier, everybody else piles on 1, then everybody piles on the second one. So and when I say pile on, I don't mean stand in it, but you just need to make sure that you're not in range of the second aura, because they have a lot of hit points. So there's a Pat of double Death Knight Cavaliers. Then there's a mob over here. There's one over here, and there's one over here that is 1 DK Cavalier and a few of the Death Touched or Doom Touched or whatever warriors. On that one, everyone piles in. We kill the Cavalier while cleaving the other little ones down. So we do those pulls, and then it's a 3-pack of this. So, but one of them is called a Death Lord. So what we're going to do is we're going to kill the Death Lord first. So what we'll do is everyone will be back here on the pull because we've cleared. We run in. 1 tank grabs a Cavalier, runs it over here. Another tank takes a Cavalier and drags it over the stairs. We kill the Death Lord. We kill a Cavalier. We kill the second Cavalier. So back in 40-man, you had to clear these skeletal steeds. I don't know if that's going to be the case again. They don't really do anything. I think they have like an intercept and maybe a stomp, but they're really easy. We can just chain pull these. They do hit the tanks kind of hard, but that won't be an issue. So with that completed, we get to Resuvius. Resuvius is another mind control fight. So here's Resuvius's big two mechanics. The first one is he hits so hard that he is untankable. No, we do not have any tanks that can tank him. So you have to use one of these 4 adds to tank him. So they have 2 abilities. They have a taunt and a 25-second shield wall. So the idea is we run up. We have we're employing a fire moth strategy on this. Okay, guys. So all of the ranged DPS and healers are over here. The melee, because his second ability is something called Disrupting Shout. So what it is, it's a mana burn. It will burn like 4,000 or 5,000 mana, but it does 1 or 2 damage per point of mana burned. So he'll go do most of somebody's life in a mana burn and take half their mana. So healers, you're screwed if you get hit by this. But it's line of sightable. So what we're going to do is we're going to tank Resuvius like right over here. And he can't get line of sight on people. And then we've got our mind control tank mob like right here. So we're able to heal it without getting hit by the Disrupting Shout. Range DPS, what you're going to do is you're going to be run in like this. DPS, when Disrupting Shout's about to hit, you're going to run over here. When Disrupting Shout's done, back out. And then back into the group when it's about to hit. So it does have a little wonky line of sight. You need to really be sure that you're tucked away. Otherwise, you will get hit. So on pull, what we're going to do is the priests are going to do a max range Mind Soothe on these front 2 understudies. Malashita is going to run up, grab like this one on the left with mind control, and that's how the pull is going to start, right? So what happens now is we will have some people out of line of sight. You'd still need to watch, or in line of sight, you still need to watch the Disrupting Shout. The tanks are going to kind of wait here for a second, and Malashita is going to run this mob back up here in order to pick up Resuvius. The tanks are going to run up and tag these Death Knight understudies, all of them. We're gonna go pick them up and tank them up here, so that we are in line of sight of in line of sight of the healers, basically. Tanks, important note, do not use Sunder Armor on the understudies under any circumstances because it will kill them. Because when they go to tank Resuvius, they will be sundered, and he will hit them like a fucking truck, and they will die. So, so we're tanking him here. Oh look, I'm getting heals as the MC person, but Resuvius can't see me. Oh my god, this is amazing. So one of the other things that we need to keep in mind is the way to tank these is you taunt the boss. You're just auto-attacking him. You taunt the boss, and you use Shield Wall. The Shield Wall lasts about 25 seconds. You need to tank him for about 30 seconds because when you break when the mind control breaks, it puts like a 1.5 or 2 minute debuff on the mob. They can't be mind controlled again. So we have to keep every understudy alive the whole time. Otherwise, we run into a situation in which we've run out of understudies that aren't on debuffs, debuff for the mind control. So we have, Malashita's tanking one, another priest with hit gear. When Shield Wall's about to run out, mind controls one of the understudies, runs up, taunts, waits a second or two, Shield Walls. Malashita, in the meantime, releases the mind control on the first one. Tank picks it up and runs it over here. So healers, all of your healing needs to be focused on keeping that understudy as healthy as possible. I mean, absolutely max the heals on it because we have to keep these understudies alive. Um, anyway, melee, you're in the whole time. You're just sitting there attacking Resuvius. I believe the Death Knight understudies. It's basically impossible to pull threat, um, but you're just sitting here doing damage the whole time. Um, and that's that. It's a pretty easy fight. You just need to get the mind control mechanics, the rotations down. We'll be going over that in some more specific detail. I'll be going into that with more specific detail with the priests that are doing it. So people don't really need to worry about it. It's just a stay out of line of sight game for everybody else, and then the melee just fucking face roll. So that brings us to these polls. The Unholy Staves have an AoE. Arcane Explosions is quite large. We need to separate them by at least 15 or so yards or more. We kill one, then we kill the other. The Unholy Axes, they have a cleave or a whirlwind, I forget, but they also do AoE damage. Staves are always our kill target. Axe is always our secondary kill target, and sword is always our third kill target. Swords are just a high single target. I think they have like a sort of Wind Fury esque. It's the sword talent proc or whatever. It's not a big deal. They do hit really hard for whoever's tanking them, but it's not like it's unhealable. So we do the weapon packs. Not a huge deal. We move through that pretty quick. We just keep the AoE one separate. There's a Death Knight Cavalier patrol that comes up and down here. We get that. Then there's a 2 Necro Knight, 1 Shade of Naxxramas, not 2 Shades of Naxxramas pull. We kill the Necro Knights. We keep the Shade of Naxxramas stunned. No, there's the pat. There we go. And then there's a semi-optional pull, which is 2 Necro Knights, 2 Death Knights in 40 man. You can avoid it. You can go like this, and it's actually what I would really prefer to do because a 2 Necro Knight, 2 Death Knight pull is really shitty. But we'll see what we can get away with. We don't have a strong history of skipping trash. So now we're at Gothic. Here's the thing with Gothic. He stays up on that shit-ass balcony the whole time until the very end. This side is going to be the caster side. Because a lot of the stuff over here is immune to magic. So our melee DPS and maybe a hunter or two are going to be over here. The way this works is whenever we kill something on the left side, or the living side is really what it's called, it flows along. It flows along up here and drops the mobs here. So the pace of the mobs coming to the second side is determined by the first side. That is the most important thing to know because the way we kill things on this side determines how fucked the other side gets. And so we are the ones that are kind of killing ourselves. Like if that side gets overwhelmed, it's partially the living side's fault. So there are 3 kinds of mobs that spawn on this side. They're Death Knight, or they're called Unrelenting Riders. There's Unrelenting Death Knights, and there's Unrelenting Trainees. The Trainees are the least threatening over here. They just have like a stupid knockdown and I think a bleed. It's nothing. It is not a big deal at all. And they spawn like 3 of them every 20 or 25 seconds, starting at like 10 seconds. So they are polymorphable. That's the big thing. The second kind of mob, sort of the middle easy mob, is the Unrelenting Death Knight. They have a little aura around them. Not a huge deal. They do have higher hit points and do more melee damage. I think they maybe also have a cleave. And then there's the Unrelenting Death Knights. They have a Shadow Bolt volley and something else that's annoying. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. So we need the Death Knights to die quickly over here, because they're by far the most damage output. And then the Death Knights, and then the trainees, as far as our priority goes. So the Death Knight Riders are shackleable, which is really cool because they don't spawn that often. So they spawn like every 30 seconds after 2 minutes. So we're only going to see like 4 of them, and they're shackleable. So if we put the priests over here, there's a world in which we maybe never only have to kill 1 or 2 of these Death Knight Riders. So over here, every time we kill a Death Knight Rider, or an Unrelenting Rider rather, it turns into an Unrelenting Rider and a stupid horse. The horses are annoying. The Death Knight, the Riders are not that dangerous. They're, I mean, whatever. They have that little shadow aura, kind of like the Death Knights do over on the live side. Your number 1 kill priority over here is actually what the trainees turn into, which is they turn into these little spectral ghosts that will spam a 30-yard range arcane explosion. So that means that you guys get proper screwed by having too many of those up. So we have to kill the trainees slowly in a measured way on this other side so that you guys don't get screwed by the trainees. So we can't just go cleave a bunch of them down, because we will overwhelm this side and they will die. So they're the first priority over here, and then it's the Unrelenting Riders, and then it's the Unrelenting DKs. The DKs have a sort of a mid-range mana burn. So everyone on this side, the healers need to all stand kind of over here, because everything spawns from a bone pile. So the healers need to stand over here. Don't let the Unrelenting DKs get to the group. I'm fairly certain they're stunnable, but they're also just tankable. So don't let them get to the group. They are sort of the third priority. The fourth priority is the horses that spawn from the riders. They're not a huge deal. They do need to get tanked because they hit hard and they have like an intercept, I believe, but not a huge deal. So what we're going to do over here is, as the fight progresses, we're going to kill like 1 trainee. Give it a second. Another trainee, give it a second. Another trainee, give it a second. Then the DKs are going to start spawning. We're going to kill them as priority, and maybe drag 1 trainee on top of them, and then polymorph a trainee and keep 1. And then if we get a good pause because our DPS is good, then we kill that other trainee. So you're just going to have to listen and trust my CC callouts. We're going to have CC assignments, because if I call for a polymorph, the mages need to know that we're 3 down in the rotation, so it's Katuk or whoever, right? It's going to be the same for Shackles. So that's kind of the whole fight. We do that, and then after like 3 or 4 minutes, Gothic comes down. So let's get it going just so you can see. I probably should have started this earlier because I can't control how fast these idiots come out. But that's the whole fight. So then he comes down at the very end, by the way. In 25-man, I think he does an Arcane Explosion, but I believe it's a Shadow Bolt volley in 40-man. He'll come down for like 15, 20 seconds on this side and do a bunch of damage. He also does a stacking. Okay, so here are the trainees. Oh my god. But I killed one of them, and now on this other side, you're going to see 3 ghosts spawn. After a little bit of interval. See, yeah, there we go. See ghost. So the shitty thing would be for that side is I killed the trainees so fast that side would definitely be getting overwhelmed, right? So we can't we can't kill them that close to each other because they're just going to be awash in these trainees. And it is a big range. It's a 30-yard arcane explosion, so it's dangerous. So we got these idiots coming out for a while. Not a big deal. Oh my god, it's our first DKs. Tanks pick them up. And see, for this one, those DKs would still be up. So what we would do is the tanks would each pick up a trainee, and we'd call for a polymorph on one of them, on the right-hand one, for example. And we've gotten the Death Knights down and 2 of the trainees. Oh, we're back. Call for 2 polymorphs on that one, and 1 shackle, and we keep going. And then, okay, we've gotten those down. We're going to break the shackle and kill it, and we're going to drag one of the polymorphs on top of it. Cool. So now we've got 1 trainee up. It's more chaotic than that, in all likelihood. So we had a double where they spawned right on top of each other. So now we're going to start getting rider spawns. Yeah, there we go. You know, we would still have these things up, so we'd call for a shackle on the rider. We'd try to finish these, then we'd break the shackle on the rider, drag 2 trainees on top of it, see what we can do. It's just the leadership. So these are coming over. This isn't an actual mechanic. It's just so that people can solo this shit. So you just really have to listen for the call-outs on CC for the leadership, because we are the ones that set a manageable pace as far as what gets killed on the other side. So that's like sort of the most important critical element here is how do we not screw the dead side with our pacing. Because we could AoE the trainees, right? They don't have that much life. We could AoE them down, but then we would be screwing the other side. So that is the biggest thing. So we do this forever. It's only like 4 minutes. It's not that long. But they really do come at a healthy clip. As soon as you get the Death Knight Riders or the Unrelenting Rider spawn, then you have 3 different timers for what's spawning when, and things will line up on top of each other. Luckily, it's the same every time. It's the same every time. DBM will tell us when what's spawning next, I believe, even, so that we can make some preemptive decisions based on what's up. So I know that if that side is overwhelmed, that we're going to have a heavy CC round on our side. So Gothic should be coming down any minute. So again, he does an Arcane Explosion in this one on one side, then he'll teleport to the other side, then the melee DPS him, then the gate should open, and then we all DPS him. He has like no life, so I would just not worry too much about this phase. If you feel you're getting low, take a Shadow Prop Potion. He also does this, by the way, which is it stacks. That's the enrage timer if you've lost too many people during the other phase. Don't worry about it. We just need to keep everybody alive. So that's Gothic. The polls in here, again, are completely different. The first poll is like right here. It is 4 infectious ghouls. Those are the guys with a really nasty cleave, and they hit the tanks like a truck. We separate them kind of like the patchwork golems and kill them. There's a shade of Naxxramas right in the middle. And then there are 2 Necropolis acolytes at the door here. So we've dealt with those guys plenty. We interrupt their Shadow Bolt volley. We can't interrupt an Arcane Explosion, but we interrupt their Shadow Bolt volley and single target them down. There's a 2 Plagued Gargoyle pull that is a pat. Then there's a double Necropolis Acolyte again. There's a pat that is a Death Knight Vindicator, which is like a Death Knight Cavalier on roids, and a Necro Knight Guardian, which is like a Necro Knight on roids. We got to kill the Necro Knight Guardian as fast as we can. Oh no. Got to kill the Necro Knight Captain or Guardian as fast as we can. And we'll fight that up here. So then what we're going to do is, again, just like the Spider Wing, this room is full of those dog pats. I don't remember what they do. I remember wiping a bunch to them, and I don't want to do them. So we're not going to, depending on what Warcraft Logs teaches us. So we're going to skip over here. This pat doesn't exist. None of this stuff exists. The only thing we have to worry about is we get right here. Everybody bandages up all the way. There's a double Necropolis Acolyte, again, pull. What we do is we pull around here. And this pull does not exist. And it brings us to 4 horsemen. So it's not that bad. This is a manageable amount of trash. It is a pain in the ass, but it is very manageable. We can do this. Really, everything in here is undead. The best way to move through this wing, as you can see, like it's all multi-mob packs. They're all undead. How's about we have everybody bring a bunch of Stratholme Holy Water? Right? That's the way to do this, is you bring Stratholme Holy Water. Everybody does a lot of damage. We breeze through this place. This is one of the best ways we can cut out significant time out of the run, is by doing this quickly. So this brings us to 4 horsemen. There's no way I can really give you a good sense of this fight solo. So I'm going to talk about their abilities. I'm going to do a couple of example rotations. And then we are going to practice this as a guild, so don't worry about it. So this is Lady Blamow. She gets tanked in this back left corner. Her ability is a Void Zone ability. The Void Zone ability hits really hard if you stand in it. So the best thing to do is, if you're on that side and she's about to cast a Void Zone, actually start moving preemptively. Like if you're a tank, start moving like through her or in a little semicircle around her, so that you're moving when the Void Zone is cast, so you're already almost out of it by the time it hits the ground. It does work. It is the way to do it. You will save yourself a ton of damage if you do it. But that goes for anyone on that side, because you can cast it on anyone. This is Thane Korthaz. We're going to tank him in this corner. Thane Korthaz's ability is a meteor. It's just like the meteors in AQ. It's soaked by everyone in it. This is probably the most dangerous ability in here, because we're going to be transitioning all the time. And so any tanks that are transitioning, and DPS groups that are transitioning every 3 marks on this side, need to note the meteor cooldown. If meteor's about to hit, even if a mark is about to hit, you must stay in. So a really great thing that can save people on this is a Greater Fire Protection Potion. It can mitigate a lot of damage for you, because you're going to take an extra mark tick or whatever it is. It's really important. This is Baron Rivendare, which is not who it is. It's Mograine in 40-man. Mograine's going to get tanked over here. He does a fire dot that does like 5k damage over a few seconds. It hits like, and he generally hits like an absolute truck. He might be the hardest hitting boss in here. He is a dangerous ass mother. So he's tanked back there. And as far as tanking position goes, by the way, guys, I know the temptation is always to like sit back in the corner or back here. The best thing you can do is tank them at an angle, so like he's facing here or here, because it reduces the range that the healers and range DPS need to get to. I mean, on Thane, they need to be up here, so it's not a great example, but it reduces the range that they need to get to, and the melee can still stand here, and then on Meteor, for example, the melee can just collapse right on you, and it's not a big deal. And then the ranged can, of course, DPS from Thane's front right on top of you, as well as heal you from right on top of you. So those are the four, or no, I got to talk about Zeliek. Old Zeliek disease over here has a holy based chain lightning, and he is tanked in the back. The big thing here is it does have a pretty large spread range. It's like probably at least 10 yards. So if you're over here healing or DPSing melee, you can't go in on Zeliek. You will chain, and it hits very hard. So you'll never go in on Zeliek. Ranged, if you go in on Zeliek, you need to be spread at big intervals. Only a few of you can be in at the same time, and the priority position is given to healers. Do not crowd the healers. So, so that's that. So on the pole, we're gonna have 8 tanks. Okay, there's gonna be 2 tanks on Blamau, 2 tanks on Zeliek. Well, I mean, there's 1 to start with. There's 1 on each one. And then there's a safe zone. The safe zone is like right on these stairs right here. It's why the tanks need to drag the boss all the way into the corner and then reposition themselves. Because they have a mark. It is a 65-yard range. It stacks every 12 seconds. It does like the difference between Mark 3 and Mark 4 is like an additional 2,000 damage. It's a big deal. So this is the defining mechanic of the fight is they each have a unique one, and so they stack differently. So if I'm over here for 36 seconds, I've hit my 3rd mark. I'm probably close to hitting my 4th mark. That 4th mark is going to hit, but if I go run out of the 65-yard range and I'm over here, that mark now, the next mark I'm going to take, even though I'm at 4 stacks of the other one, the first mark I'm going to take here is going to do very little damage. So it's kind of like you're resetting your stacks. So I'm going to talk about the healers first, because they have a unique rotation. So we're going to have assigned 3 healers to each corner. And in each of those 3 groups, there's going to be a 1, 2, and 3 slot. That denotes which mark in the first 3 you move on, because the healers are going to move in a circle around the whole room going clockwise. So I'm in the first group. We're going to say the first group is Flunky, Saji, and Diggs. Let's just say, right? Flunky's number 1, Saji's number 2, and Diggs is number 3. Flunky is, so those are the 1, 2, 3 assignments. On Mark 1, Flunky, who's healing over here, goes over here. Okay? And then he waits for 3 marks. He's healing, healing, healing. Oh, Mark 4 has hit. Flunky's healing over here. Mark 7 has hit. Flunky's healing over here. And so once that first rotation is done, so Flunky moves at number 1, he always after that moves at 3 marks. So Saji, who's number 2, he's waiting on this one until the 2nd mark hits. 2nd mark hits, he's leaving. And coming over here, and he's waiting for 3 marks. Then for 3 marks over on Zeliek. Then for 3 marks over on Mograine. So Saji will be moving on marks 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, 17, like that. But it's every 3 marks. So when he gets to 3 marks on a mob, he moves. You can't resist marks, by the way. That's not the way this works. So, and then Diggs would stay for all 3 marks here, and has the easiest job because he stays for 3, and then he stays for 3, and then he stays for 3, and then he stays for 3. So healers, you're going to be doing that the whole time until we get to the final 2 bosses. That's going to be just until these 2 bosses are dead. Now I'm going to explain the DPS and tank rotations, because this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So on this side, and just know, by the way, the tank rotation on this for the backside tanks stays the same the whole time. It stays the same as what we're doing over here. It's just that you don't have DPS following you. Okay, so there's going to be, let's say tank number 1 is assigned to Thane over here. Okay, and then there's a tank assigned to Mograine, and then there's a tank. The tanks number 3 and number 4 are standing in the safe zone. Okay, so I grab Thane. I'm over here. I'm tanking his ass. I get to 3 marks. What happens? Right after the mark hits, tank number 3 is coming here to me, running from the safe zone, is taunting. I wait until the mob is on him, and I run out. Okay, and I'm moving to here. I am waiting for 3 marks. Okay, so right now I tanked for marks 1 through 3. Now I'm over here for marks 4 through 6. Okay, so after 3 marks there, so on mark 7, I'm running in to grab Mograine. Okay, I tank the shit out of Mograine, as one does. I tank the shit out of Mograine for 3 marks, right? So 7, 8, 9. I've gotten 9 marks. I'm at where we just hit mark 9. I'm running back out once this tank has come to replace me. Okay, so we always follow that rotation. You go one side to the middle, to the opposite side to the middle, to the other side to the middle, to the opposite side to the middle, constantly. And all the tank groups will have a DPS group with them that follows them religiously. You don't need to clump up on Mograine. I suggest you don't. In fact, you do need to clump up on Thane. So the tanks that are starting over here with their DPS groups, those DPS groups are not going to go in right away because we have to keep them balanced for Thane. So DPS groups 3 and 4 are going to be standing here. You're going to wait until after 3 marks. You're going to go in with your tank, and this is the tank perspective. That tank's going in after mark 3, is taunting, is tanking. Okay, I've gotten now 3 marks, so we've hit mark 6 in the totals. I'm running out after this replacement tank has come in. I hope that that's clear. We're going to practice this in person with groups done and the whole shebang so that everyone's super clear. I'm going to call out mark numbers, and I'm going to watch people move. Because this fight, there is some output aspects to this, right? Which is mostly healing and tank related. It's not necessarily DPS related. But we do need to finish the fight in a way that's expedient enough. Because it gets difficult. So once we get these first 2 down, their ghosts will remain, and their ghosts can still do the mark, which means the same safe spots still apply, except we don't need to worry about their other abilities, and they stay stationary there. Okay, it's important to kill them in the corner and not out from the corner, otherwise there is no safe spot. So the tanks in the back have been doing the same thing, right? You're in the safe zone, which is not the front side of this one, by the way. It's still at this spot. The tanks are doing their rotation the whole time. So when those first 2 are dead, then the healers are going to stop doing their full quarter rotation. Full quarter rotation. Once you get through Zeliak, you run to the safe spot. Okay? And you're going to start moving in and out with the tank groups. That will all be assigned beforehand. So you're just going to be in the same spot as everybody else for moving in and out. It's not a big deal. So we do the same thing as we do on that side, which means that killing these ones is slow. Okay? So what we're likely going to do is... at this point, it opens up a little bit to your discretion. Melee, the second your stacks of Blamau are done, you should DPS Blamau and not just sit in the safe zone and pretend to DPS Zeliak, right? Just as soon as your stacks drop on that one, go to Blamau. Ranged, as soon as your as soon as your Zeliak stacks drop, get back on Zeliak and stay spread out, because we need the most amount. We need more ranged on Zeliak, and we need more melee on Blamau. Okay, but once we get those first two down, the fight is very winnable. But this is just about everybody. We can't have anybody mess up, basically. So it sucks because there's a ton of personal accountability, but DPSers, follow your marks. Follow your assigned tanks. You'll be okay. Healers, you're running in a square, and you just need to know that you're going every three, except for those first three. Those first marks 1, 2, and 3 are the only time you don't do that. And outside of that, the only mechanic that we really need to manage is making sure that Meteor's timers are good. And then we're fine. Like, this is, again, like, it's very sort of A to B to C to D. As far as the mechanics on this fight go, it is a complicated pain in the ass, but just think about don't think about anything else except for your specific assignment. You do your job perfectly, and don't worry about anybody else's job. That's my job, and Drail's job is to worry about everybody's job. You worry about your assigned job and nothing else. And if we do that, this fight, very doable. It's honestly, it is doable week 1 with the gear we have now. So I expect everybody to really be laser focused. Laser focused on the whole instance, including trash. But see, look, they're running to their corner of Zono. But for obvious reasons, this fight is mechanically dissimilar to anything else we've ever seen. Oh yeah, if you don't have tanks in melee range, they fuck you. That's what a mark looks like. You take additional damage from the next mark. Okay, and that's military quarter.